So just make sure of that, and I guess we'll start. Let the people who are coming, I'll admit them as well. Today, this is the Fundae session that has been organized by this called the CDC. So, and
Koustav, I'm unable to hear you. Is it just with me or is the audio itself gone?
others, can you hear me? Can somebody confirm?
Now I
Yeah,
can hear you.
yeah.
Now
Okay,
it's
okay.
better.
So, okay,
Gone again.
Faster it's again not
Yeah,
audible.
gone again. I think your earphone microphone something is wrong.
I guess Costa, you should turn off your video. It might be an issue with
yeah.
our back.
So, yeah. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
So let's start this session off on a formal note. So we'll give a brief overview of all those profiles. To start off the software profile, I'll ask Manjunath Bhat to give a brief
Yeah.
overview of the software profile.
Hi everyone. I hope I'm audible. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
I'm Manjunath Bhat. I'm a final year undergraduate from the Department of Mechanical Engineering. I just recently completed my summer internship at Goldman Sachs. And I know most of you will be sitting for CDC internships this semester and will have a lot of questions going on in your mind. Like, I haven't done enough projects, or I haven't done app development or web development before, or I have never worked on a software project before. How will I get a software profile internship? So I'll just give you a basic overview of the process. So for most companies in the CDC, the process is basically first there'll be a shortlisting test. For shortlisting in most companies, your resume doesn't matter much. All that matters is maybe your CG for some companies, and then the performance in that particular test. Uh, yeah. Oops, there's a lot of disturbance from somewhere.
Okay, I'll mute all. Wait a second. Manjunath, you have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I muted them. Manjunath, unmute yourself and continue.
Yeah. I'm audible, right?
Yeah.
So, right. So for most software profiles, you have the shortlisting is basically done through an online test, which will have, or most of the times, questions on algorithms, data structures. So a decent practice of algo data structures and a decent enough skill in competitive programming will suffice for quite a few companies. For some companies, you need to go that extra mile. And once the shortlisting is done, the interview for software companies will once again involve coding questions that test your problem solving skills using data structures algorithms. And some companies might also question you on your project based on your experience. Um, so yeah, if you have any questions, like I haven't really done any pure software project as of now, and I don't really have anything on my CV yet. In the CDC process, since it's on campus, your CV doesn't really matter much for software roles, for most of the software roles. And all that matters is mainly your problem solving skills and how you perform in the interview and your shortlisting tests. Of course, there might be a few companies which do require specific skills like knowledge of systems, OS, networks, or stuff. But those sort of companies are very few, and for most companies, the problem-solving skills will suffice. Problem-solving skills in algo DS. Um, yeah. Does anybody else want to add something to the?
We will have a lot of time to brief idea about the ML profile. And for this, I'll ask Chinmay Singh to Chinmay, if you're there in the call. Chinmay. Okay, so moving. Chinmay, you're not audible. Chinmay, just unmute yourself. You're breaking up, but you're audible.
There is a lot of background noise.
I'll mute
Yeah.
them. Just
Oh, yeah.
you have to unmute yourself, I think. So I guess.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chinmay Singh, and I'm a final year student in the Department of Chemical Engineering. I got my CDC intern at Gartner. There is a lot of noise.
And everybody who is joining, please mute yourself. So the moment I click the speaker will also be muted. So
Am I audible? But yeah, I think now it would be fine. So I got my CDC intern at Gartner, and that got cancelled. So right now I'm working as a machine learning intern at Apple. Uh, about the machine learning profile, I'm audible, right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. So about the machine learning profile, I think the profile shouldn't be called machine learning. Like most of the companies that come are mostly for data analytics profile, except only a few. Research-based roles, I think only a couple of them would offer, like Adobe Research, I guess, and then Vadhwani AI. Besides that, most of the roles are more of the applied kind and data science. About the requirements for this, like I contrary to what Manjunath said, I think that CV would play a role in data science profiles, because like it's not a very it's a new profile, and the field is like not much explored and expected out of undergrads. So that's there, and I think having a project surely helps in the relevant field that the profile is. Besides that, all the tests are usually mostly the same for software as well as data roles. So there is an extra section, I think, that you have to attempt, which is data or machine learning questions. And those include questions from statistics, as well as a heavy role of, there's a heavy section of probability. There might be a bit of data interpretation. Coding questions do come in these tests, although the general setting is that you have to excel in one of the sections, though doing coding questions never is a bad option. That you should always keep in mind to attempt the coding questions. The questions, I think, for the roles that are more data oriented, the topics wouldn't be too hard, like graphs and all. I didn't find in a profile that came explicitly for data. So I think more of strings, arrays, and DP would be the thing that you might be required. Having Python language on your CV surely helps, because most of the data science is pursued in Python. Besides that, yeah, if anyone has any question, they can ask.
okay, I guess that gives us a good overview of the ML or the applied data science profile. And now let's ask Krishnam to
audible? Yeah, please tell me when I'm audible.
Yeah, Krishna, you're good to go.
Yes,
We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm good. Okay, great. So hi everyone, my name is Krishnam, and I got an quant intern in Quadeye Securities from the CDC internships program. Okay, so coming to quant, I'd just like to clarify that there are actually two subfields in quant, and both are handled pretty differently. So one is the high frequency trading, and the other is the mid frequency trading. All right. So I'll tell you the difference between the two. So in case of high frequency trading, you basically trade at nanoseconds, and your traded capital is very large, and you don't have any holding period. That means that if you execute a trade right now, let's say you buy some. Hey, I think I was.
Krishnam, you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Am I back on? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I hope you got the differentiation between mid frequency and high frequency. I was just coming to the specifics that in high frequency trading, you only hold your positions for less than 5 seconds or so. And for mid frequency, you hold it over days. So why I'm telling you this? The reason I'm telling you this is that high frequency is basically a disguised form of data science or statistics. You end up spending all your day in visualizing statistics, driving out insights, or creating new features and doing things like that. There's absolutely no finance in it. It's a total technology based role. You mostly do C++, C. In fact, a lot of custom libraries which are company specific, which they have built just for them, because these systems are ultra low latency. And also they also expect that you know a decent bit about systems, not in the interns, but in general, as in the role involves a lot of system engineering and all. Coming to the other end, that is the mid frequency. Here, finance knowledge may be an added plus because you actually care about how company is doing or what are the company fundamentals, as we call it in finance, and you actually invest from a longer perspective, like at least months or even years or something like that. So that's the basic differentiation. So I'll talk about my role a bit. So my interview with Quadeye was absolutely skill based. And so this interview, I feel that in Quadeye, CV shortlisting might not well, CV making might not help you that much. Having a good CG is definitely one of the criteria to get shortlisted, not necessarily the only. Apart from that, they look for C++ coding, and they ask a lot of brain teasers and puzzles. So that is something that I think is very learnable. You basically, if you practice for 10 days or so, you can be very comfortable with the puzzles part. So I had 5 rounds, and most of them were focused on puzzles, and like most of the rounds, and some were focused on data structures and all. Having Python would help for mid frequency roles, and having proficiency in C++, Bash, Haskell, and all would help for high frequency roles. In Kharagpur's internship session, they didn't ask any OS specific questions, at least for quant roles. But I've heard that they do ask them in other ITs. Of some of my other friends have told me that they were asked. So I think that's perhaps a depth thing, that if you are from CS, they might even consider asking you that. But since I am from EC, so I had no clue about it. So they didn't bother to ask me about OS and networking stuff. But so they basically just checked my logical thinking in terms of puzzles, math calculations, and all. So if you might be familiar with NTSC based mathematical aptitude, so that is also a section there. They ask you a lot of maths questions in between interviews just to see if you can parallel or do parallel things or multitask. So as I've just described, your role as a high frequency quant would involve statistics, data science, not neural networks. I was not deep learning, but machine learning in general, because we do a lot of stuff. So basically whatever that helps you model your data. And same goes for the mid frequency, but it also involves some fundamental knowledge about finance and how financial models are there, or what financial models are there. Yeah, so I think that's an overview, if you guys heard me at all. So yeah, that's an overview for quant profiles.
Thanks, Krishnam.
Okay.
I think for this next one, did a switch from and started coding, and I think that is pretty switch from code and into a coding profile. So Aman Raj, if you're there, please unmute yourself and give overview. Aman Raj from industrial department did switch from core to non-core, as they say. And if you are there in this chat, please tell us how was your experience, or how was the journey learning coding from scratch, preparing for interviews. Aman Raj, if you attend the call, please unmute yourself. I guess there's no Aman Raj here. Or should we wait? Or do one thing that you had asked. So I'll start off by seeing the questions, and let's say I'll ask one by one to answer them. Just wait for a sec. Okay. Okay. So I'll ask. So let's start it off. I'll ask Kumar Pratyush. So there's a question: on what basis are candidates selected from coding rounds? Is the time of submission taken into account? How many students on average are selected from a coding round? Kumar Pratyush, if you're there in the call. Everybody, if you're
Koustav, can you repeat the question? Your voice is
okay.
not
Sorry.
clear.
Sorry. You should tell me that. Sorry. So the question is basically
I was
about.
unmuting it.
The question is basically about how many questions are asked, what's the general procedure of the interviews, and how many of them are shortlisted. It's from software profile. Could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most of the companies, as you all know, have a shortlist test before, like 9, 10 days before the day one. So shortlist test formats for different companies are little different, but a general format is like you will have 2 or 3 questions of varying level according to the company. And some companies include MCQs regarding systems and other things as well, but very few companies. Now, the question levels will be different for like Uber and Nutanix have very high competitive programming questions, while companies like Amazon or like JPMC have a little easy questions. Now, after you get shortlisted, next is the interview round. Some companies have also a middle round like Microsoft, which includes a group fly round. And after that, you in the interview, different companies again. Some companies take less number of rounds, like 1 or 2 rounds. Some companies like Quadeye have 5 rounds. Most of the companies, after the first 1 or 2 rounds of technical questions, included it with HR round. In the technical round, like for the software profile, the main thing asked is mostly competitive programming, especially from like, as far as I know, mostly the 4-year people don't have much of system background, so mostly competitive programming questions are asked. But in some cases, you may ask questions relevant to object-oriented programming as well. That's the overall like structure of interviews and short tests.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Pratyush. So let me move on to a next question. This one is for Prashant Ramnani, if you're there in the call. Prashant Ramnani.
Hi.
Yeah. So there's this question. What are some research profile internships available?
Can you come again?
Okay. So what are some of the research profile internships that are available?
Like the few I know, like one would be Vadhani AI, where I interned. One would be Adobe, and like few others are more on the side of data analytics, as Chinmay mentioned.
Okay.
If anyone else knows any other,
There's also one
companies.
more called AWL, a Japanese company,
Oh yeah.
which is also again based on AI and DL mainly. It's more like a computer vision research company, and it usually comes on day 3. I guess last year it came on day 3.
Yeah, I
Might
think it
come.
came even late than that.
Oh, okay. But it comes a little bit late than the first 2-3 days. Yeah. But that is also a very good research opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to mention also Microsoft Deep Learning also has a good research profile. Also, you get to submit your papers in the conferences held internally in the Microsoft, like Microsoft ML Labs. There is a conference of MLAI, so you can also add your projects there. It is the Microsoft ML hires differently. Like they have separate rounds. We have a coding round as for CP, and then they have a round of 50 MCQs for machine learning, and the interviews are also separate for machine learning and computative programming. So there are 2 interviews, and that is also a good research profile company.
Besides that, I'd like to add that last year Capital One mentioned in their placement intern talk that they have their profile included a fair bit of computer vision, and I don't know research, but surely applied research.
Yeah, so I'd like to add there that Capital One actually works on data analytics, but their hiring procedure is very different. So in case you are planning to go for it, then do this thing known as quantitative case interviews, because they'll ask you something else and their profile is something else. So they do work in cloud computing and NLP. That's what I got to hear from my friend. Yeah, but so you can count it as close to research, but yeah, their hiring procedure is different.
Thanks for this.
Hi,
Moving on to
Koustav.
yeah,
Hi, Koustav. Can you hear me?
yeah, sure.
I would just like to add that no one has added yet that even in software profiles there are many companies, like even in Google and even in Uber there are many roles where you can actually work on algorithmic problems apart from the general notion of research problems like that involves data. There are actually projects where you can work on algorithmic problems and actually publish a paper in that area. So even if you want to work on algorithms and data structures, you can still opt for software profiles. So there is that. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Shishodia. For, so while we are at it, could you please answer topic should be focused for like Microsoft and Uber? So we are at it. Shishodia.
Hello, sorry, Koustav, I didn't hear you. Can you
Uh,
please reduce the noise and ask me again?
I'll try my best to reduce the noise.
Okay. Koustav, I asked you to reduce your voice, not reduce noise, not your voice.
He muted himself. Best way to reduce everything.
Hello, Koustav, are you there?
Maybe somebody else can host.
Okay, so
Yeah, Prashant, you can go on answering the question. The question is, what topic should we focus for companies like Microsoft and Uber?
okay, so I guess I can answer this because I have given the shortlisting rounds for most of the day one companies. I guess all of the day one companies, and I got selected in all of them. So most of them, not all of them. Sorry. So what actually is the process is in shortlisting rounds there might be questions from talking about day one. There might be questions from basic DP and even some tricks on trees and even some basic bitwise operations. So, but for say in Tower Research Capital, there are questions from say world finals. So I heard that last to last year in Tower Research they asked a question that was asked in world finals a few years back. So but people got it by searching. So there is that. So the thing is problems that are asked in day one companies are diverse from different fields, like, but you can expect that no one will ask you a question that isn't covered in interview bit, like the front page that you get on interview bit that contains all the problems. So if you finish all those problems, then I think you are good to go, except that for some problems you might have to actually think and actually solve them during the contest. Other than that, I have consulted my friends who got their intern on later days. So they told me that the questions are not that hard, and they are sometimes asked to do mud sort, or mostly there are greedy problems, or there are just problems that you have to implement. So the I guess CP matters, but if you have good enough, if you do some basic practice, then you can crack most of the problems that are asked after day 5, day 6. But I guess for day 1 and day 2, you will have to practice something like at least the front page of interview bit.
Cool.
So yeah.
So moving on, Shishodia, you want to add more, or can we go to the next question?
No, I guess I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question is for Prakhar Bindal. I found the GOC series really tough. I'm doing interview bit as of now. I'm learning DP and all important topics. Please tell me which all topics are specifically important, and do all companies ask these kind of questions? Or are there some who ask a little basic too?
Yeah,
Thanks in advance. Yeah.
yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think Shishodia answered like most part of the question. Like regarding the GOC series, like there was a post in KGP Fundae anonymously also. So the point is that as Shishodia mentioned, like most of the day one and day two companies, they require a bit of like competitive programming experience. Like it won't suffice like by just doing interview bit, like you can crack them. Like most of the coding tests, some like obviously some are companies are there, but most of the coding tests you will require some sort of competitive programming experience. Also for the GOC series, like we are mostly picking up the questions from the harder part of the spectrum. Like if any one of you has given the coding test, like almost like we are trying to give almost all the questions from easy, medium level or some hard level. So we think like it's better to basically prepare more than what you are aiming, so that it will be easier to crack the test. So that answers the part, like the GOC question, GOC series questions stuff. And regarding the DP part, I think like the topics which are there on interview bit, like oh, almost all of them are necessary to cover, like including trees, DP, binary search, implementation, number theory. Like uh, I gave many interviews of many companies on day one, and like no companies like that they will ask only DP questions or binary search questions. Almost all companies ask a variety of questions. So I think completing all the topics present in interview bit will suffice. Yeah.
Okay, so next question is for Chinmay Singh. This are actually two questions combined. What are the preparations, or rather, how do you prepare for a data profile for probability, statistics, and then how much weightage is given to CP skills?
So talking about that, I think first about statistics and probability. For probability, I think that the course that we have at IIT Kharagpur, its notes and the questions should suffice. More focus should be given on distributions, and simple questions might be asked out of them, like practical applications. So you should focus on basic application of that in the real life problems. You could refer a few books like 50 Challenging Problems in Probabilities or Heard on the Street. Those are some good resources to do. Besides, obviously, problems on Geeks for Geeks. So that's there. And for statistics, I'd refer personally. I like the content in the data analytics slides that are there. The course on data analytics in the CS department. Its slides are available on the course webpage. On the third part, CP. So I personally did not attempt any competitive CP questions, but I don't think that's a very safe option to do. So I only attempted machine learning and data questions, but that I did very to a good extent. So I think that helped me. I think and in my interview I was asked a question on dynamic programming, so they don't really differentiate between that. I Besides that, I think that in the test that I gave for day one, I think mostly the questions were out of DP or strings or arrays or search or something like that. Not too difficult questions like graphs or anything like that. So yeah, that's it.
Just another follow-up question, Chinmay. Do you need to know complex data structures like trees, heaps? I think you sort of answered it, but there is a question, so I'm just asking it. Like trees, heaps, segment trees. Do you need that for ML profile, or yeah?
I think binary trees should be good enough. I think BFS, DFS from binary trees. I haven't been asked anything besides that in any interviews that I gave in CDC or outside of that. So heaps and stacks. I think that could be used for a lot of problems. So I think that's good. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the next question is for Aman Raj. Aman Raj is a guy who switched from core to non-core in between CDC. So he might have some good funda for most of the students who are confused, who are in those non-circuit branches and want to go into the non-core side. The question asks, do good companies visit in CDC internship phase 2? Aman? Hello? Aman? I don't think he's on the call. Okay,
He's
so I guess
actually on the call, but he's having problems with audio.
Okay, so shall I move on?
Yeah, move on.
All right. When he's back, just let us know, yeah? Okay, so the next question is for...
hello? Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, hi. Yeah.
Oh my, I'm really sorry. The connection is interrupting a lot. So hello everyone, my name is Aman. And actually, to begin with, I was actually interested in my core profile at first. And so I actually did an FT in the University of Hong Kong. I worked on a research project in my core profile of my department, industrial. But after that, when CDC internship started, so there were namely two companies that were really good, and they were offering internship in the supply chain profile. But unfortunately for those companies, they were a little biased towards mechanical and chemical engineering departments. So I didn't got through any of them. So after that, the only option left for me was to like get into an ST profile, because I hadn't done ML either. So in December, after phase 1 completed, I started interview bit and actually started coding after PDS in first year. So in December, I started to code on interview bit, and by mid-January, like I was doing good. I was doing a good amount of coding, and I was like confident. So in phase two, actually, in last year, actually it was Barclays. I'm just counting the good companies. It was one of them was Barclays, and there were two or three other good companies. But let me tell you that phase two only occurs for a namesake. Like it's not that placement committee really fights for the companies to bring in companies in phase two. And seeing the current situation this year, I'll really say that please don't depend on phase two. So if you are thinking that you have not coded till now, that or you have not done any coding, and how can you get into an SD profile now? I'll really strongly suggest everyone to start coding, because in a month or so, I can say that if you work hard in a month or so, you'll become good enough for a company. Not probably for good companies like Google or Uber, not those companies, but preferably other companies also that offer SD profile. You can get into them. There are banks like HSBC and Barclays that don't actually ask that hard questions for SD. They are very balanced. Like they'll ask data interpretation, they'll ask puzzles, they'll ask coding, but not that hard coding. So I'll really suggest that not to depend on Facebook, as well as start coding right away. If you're not doing and you're thinking that you're not late. Just start. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Aman. So moving on to the next question. The
Hello,
next question is for
Manjunath.
Koustav.
Hello,
Yeah.
Manjunath, can you
Yeah.
hear me? I would
Yes, I
just like
can.
to add one more question for Aman. So, hello, Aman, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello, Aman Raj.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes, I can hear you.
there is some psychological pressure. Like you said that you switched from core to like SD profile, but you when you really wanted to go for core. So I guess there is some psychological pressure that all my friends are getting good interns, but I'm not getting intern. But even when you are good enough at what you have done, like you have got an FT in core. So but how did you handle that pressure? Like you can shed some light on it. Like when all your friends have already got
Yes.
their intern and you are still preparing, you are starting from scratch. So I guess
Yes.
you can shed some light there.
So actually, there was it didn't felt at first, but like as the time progressed, and you see like literally every one of your batchmates, or every one of your like uh, mm, person in the hall, that everyone is getting intern, and they are like very relaxed, they are partying, and you are there like not having any intern and like thinking what to do. So that really accumulates over time. And this the only way to escape is to start doing. Like one thing that I noticed, that initially, like after I didn't got any intern during day one, day two, I really lost all the hopes, because there were no good companies for in my core that were coming in college. So I really lost all the hopes, and like I was pretty chill that time. But as phase one ended, like I got really surmounted by a lot of pressure, because everyone was having an intern, and I still had to find one. So that really motivated me to start coding right away, and just do proper hard work. And that might have been a mistake if Barclays didn't came in phase two. Like if Barclays didn't came in phase two, I wouldn't have got such a good intern. So I would really strongly suggest that please don't wait for that moment to happen, wherein you are really surmounted by all the pressure, by all the peer pressure. So if you have not started to code, or if you have not practiced a lot of coding these summers, please do it right away. Please start right away, because the times are tough right now. There might not be as many companies visiting the campus as last year. So it's best that you start coding right away. And don't just think that, okay, I have not done anything, so I won't get any intern. No, you'll get an intern if you work hard from now.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Aman. Yeah. So the next question is for Koustav. So this question is asking you to compare two things. To what depth should one do competitive programming, and which is more important, to be very good in CP or to have very good projects under the belt and reasonable CP skills?
Uh, okay, so Manjunath, am I audible?
Yes, clearly audible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a day one intern at Nutanix. So I did clear many of the coding tests, and here's what's my take on this. So I am not extremely superb at CP, nor I am that bad. The thing is, I just do enough CP to get by the day one companies. So making a balance of this CP thing, like it's upon you. If you want to be very good at CP, that does no harm to your internship preparation. But if you aren't that good, don't lose hope, because you don't know, because day one and day two is all about getting past your peers. You just have to be better than those 5 6 guys out there who are targeting for Google, Uber, and them. Let them get into those companies. Let them take that glory. But if you are the sixth most talented guy out there, you also have a chance. And this is what was my take on this the whole day one, day two game. So it's like being very good at CP. Yes, you will be on the top 5 list, but it doesn't hurt to be in the sixth, to be sixth, because there are companies who are willing to take you. You just have to prioritize. And so, in a way, I'll say that if you are very good at CP, you don't need to worry about anything. But if you are it's mostly a breadth wise, you can expand. Like you can be good at CP and you can be good at something. You don't need to excel at one neglecting the other. That does not harm if the field is CP, if that's for day one placements. So if Manjunath and all really knows that I was into open source, so it didn't harm me.
Yeah.
I kept on doing CP parallelly, and trust me. So this, if you play by this mindset that okay, I don't have to be greedy at everything, but I'll be greedy enough just to get by them. So that doesn't harm. So that's my mindset. So it will do you good rather than harm.
Great.
Okay, Koustav.
Yeah.
So you just said that you can do projects on this side and be like reasonably good at CP, like not too bad at CP and do projects on this side, right?
Yes.
So my question is, can we just ignore CP if we are good enough at projects? Like we have done many projects, then can we just ignore the CP? Like I have contributed very in high amount to open source, so can I just ignore CP and like showcase all my projects on my CV? Will that work?
Okay, if that's a thing for getting past the coding test, if you are targeting a day one, or like if you are contributing to open source, then mostly you know how to code. So getting a hang of basic data structures and all isn't going to be a problem for you. But if you are targeting a day one or a day two company, you need to have a decent amount of CP skills like dynamic programming and all. It doesn't come by contributing to open source. So yes, if you are very good at open source, also for getting by those companies, you need to do at least the front page of interview bit. You need to complete, you need to get by those questions that are asked on code forces. You need to get an idea of what's there on Geeks for Geeks. So yes, you need CP. You need CP. I did not underestimate CP at all, but I am saying that you can do them side by side. Like if you are really focused on getting an internship in day one or day two. That's it.
Right. I hope the point was clear. Thank you, Koustav. And the next question is for Krishnam. So the question reads, points on a good CV for quant profile, also resources and important topics for selection tests of quant. Yeah. Krishnam?
Okay, so I'll begin with the resources, as in what is comprised in a test. So as I guess a lot of panelists before me have pointed out how to do CP. So I'll just follow Koustav's line of thought that you need to be good enough in a bit of in programming to get by even the quant profiles, because they do have a coding test, but they'll mostly restrict themselves to array-based questions, greedy DP. So you can say that from if you look at the interview bit front page, you can do everything above graphs. Graphs is not required. So that much CP even you need for quant profiles. That's one part of it. The other part of it is brain teasers. So in brain teasers, we have two subcategories. The first is the probability-based brain teasers, and the second is the expectation value brain teasers. So for the expectation value brain teasers, you basically need to do your prop stats course all over again, properly, as in the KGB prop stat course is pretty good if you follow the syllabus. If you just revise that course, you're good to go. For the other end, that is the probability-based brain teasers, there are a lot of resources, as I guess some of the panelists pointed out. Heard on the Street is there, brainsiller.com is there. Then 15 interesting challenges in probability is there, but I'll not recommend that you do it because it's just too lengthy. And actual questions are just for 3 or 4 minutes, so yeah, it will not be that lengthy. Yeah, so that is the quant prep part. So I've by the way, I've documented that and posted it on my Facebook wall, so you can just like see my profile and have a list of all this if, in case you just are wondering for a guide. So that's the preparation guide. So the next is the CV. Am I correct, Manjunath?
Right. Yeah. Points on the CV.
Yeah. So points on CV. Okay. So I think no one highlighted this before, but I'll just say it for the sake of being said. That PORs in all these technology roles don't matter. So don't even like think about putting too much space into it. Jane, just mention what have you done in like 3 or 4 lines. So I am telling this because even I wasn't a quant guy from like day one on my year one. I sort of switched my profile from data analytics and consulting or business analytics to quant at a point very close to CDC. So I'll tell you that doing a lot of competitions which are machine learning based or PORs or something, things like that, don't matter that much to these technology companies. So what they'll focus is the technologies that you know in terms of, let's say, Git, Bash, C++, Python, things such as that. If you have any publication by any chance, you can definitely put it. It is a very, very big highlight of your CV. So then again, there's a differentiation between having too many publications, which makes your CV totally research oriented, or having 1 or 2 of them, which they understand are sort of results of you trying to explore things. So that is there. Interns, I think I did decent amount of interns, but I don't think they play a role as such. Mostly, as pointed out by previous panelists, the tests are skill based. The screening test would typically be competitive and puzzles. Then there will be interview rounds, multiple of those, and each of the round will have a specific topic focus. It can be a round on DS, it can be a round of just algos. So I had a round on DS and algos combined, and I had three puzzle rounds, and I had a final interaction round in which I was made to talk to a partner, and he gave me sort of a scenario, like how would you like develop a solution in this scenario. That was just sort of not soft skills, but I'll say just soft problem solving around, and for Quadeye securities. And I think that holds mostly for every company. Even Goldman Sachs, as Manjunath would probably point out, does a combination of these things in different proportions. Yeah, so if you're preparing a quant CV, things to keep in mind is that focus on technologies. If you have done interns, highlight the technology part of the intern in terms of algorithms used, accuracy improved, or the overall objective, or if you can include the Git links if it's not under an NDA. So just try to highlight whatever you have done and try to showcase it. You can always include your Git profile if you want. That's a big plus for it. And yeah, that pretty much sums it all. Don't focus too much on competitions and PORs. They really don't care about it. So don't let it take up too much CV space.
Thank you, Krishna.
Yeah, just want to add to Krishnam. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have interned at JP Morgan Chase in quant profile during the summer. So actually, quant is a combination of coding and mathematics and finance. So during the recruitment process, they actually check your problem solving and analytical skills. So it's not basically they will test your finance and coding skills. So if you are I was completely new to finance during my interview. So even if you are new to finance but you are interested in learning financial concepts and you have a good decent coding skills, or the other way, if you have basics of coding skills and a good amount of knowledge in finance also, they will recruit based on your thinking skills and problem solving skills and analytical skills. Yeah, that's it I want to add.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I in
Shiva.
fact
Yeah.
just add a bit of another point there, that as I earlier mentioned, there are two sub roles, as in high frequency and mid frequency. So for high frequency, it is totally technology intensive. They don't even care if you know what a stock is. But yeah, for mid frequency, I do recommend that you at least read what a stock is and what a long or a short is, because that is more relevant there. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Cool. Thank you, Krishnam and Shiva. So moving on to the next question. This is for Chaitanya. What other topics or questions are there in the tests except coding questions like OS, OOPS, networks, etc.? And just one second. The follow-up question to that is.
I will answer this question first, I guess.
All right. Yeah. Sure.
In Tower Research, there was a debugging section, I guess. In Nutanix, there was a different debugging round. And also there are many small questions like related to Huffman coding. Yeah, in Goldman Sachs, there is a Quant section. Also, there were, I think, 2 to 3 OS and Core related question in Tower Research. Apart from this, in coding round, I guess mostly the questions are DS and algo related only.
Right.
Mostly.
The follow-up question. Is it required for dual degree students to have internship experience or projects before their CDC internship to get some reputed companies like Google, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
All right.
But yeah, you must include some projects. Like if you are a dual degree guy, I think some projects is a must.
Okay. Just one second. There's one more question. Yeah. So it's a very redundant question again. What if one doesn't have any good projects? Does it affect much?
Yeah, I guess like in many interviews, I gave the interview of Disha. I think mostly the question were based on my resume only. So what will they ask? Like also in Disha interview, they also ask some puzzles related questions. So yeah, prepare for that too. Like it is a SDA profile, but yeah, they ask some puzzle related. Like there was a cat and dog question. I don't remember it exactly.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So the next question is, I have a specific question about Goldman Sachs. The CG criteria are questions a ripoff from GFG. I'll take this question myself. So last year there was no CG cutoff for Goldman Sachs and it was open for all departments. So that is not really a big problem. Now our questions are ripoff from Geeks for Geeks. That is not exactly true. It could be taken from interview bit or lead code. So last year there were 3 questions in the coding round. The first question was very simple. It was, you can say it's a lead code easy question where it was just a 2-pointer sorting question. And the second question was more of a combinatorics question where you will definitely come up with the formula, but to pass the large cases, you'll have to use inverse modulo and fast combinatorics calculation methods if you have to pass all the test cases. So it's better you know all these CP techniques that pass for large cases. If you just implement combinations or factorials, modulo something, it won't really work because for large numbers, it will give you a TLE. So yeah, this sort of, and you can't copy paste also in the test. So it's better you know all these techniques beforehand. And then the third question there was a graphs question, which had very small constraints, like the size of the graph was just 15 plus 15 and a brute force solution would have worked. So these were the 3 questions in the test. Then in my interview, I was asked around 3 coding questions. One was a question on hashing, one was a question on strings, and one was a question on dynamic programming. Now this DP question I had already seen on LeetCode before, so it was kind of straightforward. And the string question also, it wasn't any original type of question. I'm pretty sure you'll find these questions on Lead Code. So Goldman Sachs, usually on average, you can say the level is Lead Code medium with one or like with some questions Lead Code hard. And if you want to compare with respect to code forces or something, I guess if you're comfortable with div 2, ABC, or sometimes D, then I guess you will do a pretty good job in the Goldman Sachs interview and test. So I'm this is specifically for Goldman Sachs. And again, it's coding is not the only thing that Goldman Sachs sees. It also sees your problem solving abilities in probability, stats, and mathematics. So, and puzzles, of course. There is another question, how to prepare for probability and quant related questions. I think Krishnam already answered that pretty well. I personally used this site called brilliant.org, which had a lot of probability questions on Bayes theorem, expectation values, and so on. And I felt those questions were really good and intuitive. And of course, brainsteller.com. I did not use any books as such for to practice these problems, and use just the app brilliant.org. So yeah, this was the take on the specific Goldman Sachs question. So moving on to the next question. This is for just 1 second. There are a lot of generic questions which we've already gone through. Okay. This is for Raj Singh. It's also sort of a repetitive question itself. How and what should I revise regarding the mathematics asked in interviews and tests of various quant companies? Raj Singh, are you there? I don't think he is. Moving on. This is a question for Kshitij. How important are projects for SDE profile as compared to data structures and algorithms? Once you've registered for CDC and say you get an offer off campus, would you be allowed to back out from CDC process, given that you didn't receive any offers till that point? How do you decide the preference list of companies, and how important is it to get right? And also one more follow-up for this. What happens when you get an offer from CDC? How do you offer your consent, and whether you can reject it or accept it, and what happens after that? Kshitij?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so the first question was, if I am not wrong, how much projects are important apart from data structures and algorithms? So I guess this has been addressed quite a few times already, but I'll reiterate that having a good balance between them helps. You just need to do CP enough so as to crack the coding rounds and be able to explain the solution to the interviewers in the interviews. And having good projects is always a plus, but you should not fret that if you don't have projects, you won't be able to crack. But yeah, so having a balance helps, but there is no hard and fast rule that you need to have projects compulsorily, specifically for 4-year students. So having good competitive programming and problem solving skills is more or less sufficient to get intern in most of the companies on day 1, day 2. Can you repeat the second question, Manjunath?
Yeah, just 1 second. Can you back out of the CDC process if you get an offer off campus?
Given that you have not got an intern through CDC and you get an offer off campus, you can safely safely not sit in other companies coming forward. So that automatically, so the process, what happens in CDC is companies come and you have to apply for it. If you don't apply for a company, you won't be asked to give their rounds or interviews, etc. So once you get an off-campus offer, you can safely skip the coming companies in CDC. And what happens is, I guess there was
asked that was there something
Yeah,
asked about.
the next question was, what if you get a internship offer and let's say you don't want it? How do you accept or reject it, and what happens if you do reject it?
As per the rules mentioned by the institute, if you reject an offer after accepting, you are blacklisted from CDC and you won't be allowed to participate in the further interviews and stuff. So be very sure before you apply for a company in the first place. Like, you must be sure that you would be able to join it if given an offer, and it is
The
advised
fact
not
that
to
you're
reject.
sitting for an interview is
Yeah,
like already consent that you already
yeah,
consent that
yeah,
you accept the
exactly.
offer if yeah.
So if you accept an offer and then reject it, it creates a bad name for both you and the institute, and like it creates a bad image in front of the company of the institute. So, and you are also blacklisted from the CDC process. So it's advisable not to do things like that. Apply only for those companies in which you are really interested to go in.
Cool. Thank you, Kshitij.
Okay.
Next question is for Shiva. Can you describe the process of your selection for JP Morgan Chase, the quant profile?
Yeah. So for the quant profile, there was a preliminary test which included three sections. In the first section, it was a probability-based questions and basic logical mathematics. And in the second section, it has mathematical related questions, which was like JE Max. And in the third section, it was two coding questions given to solve in half an hour. So basically, one must do really well in the probability and max sections to get shortlisted for the interview. In the interview, there were 5 rounds. So in the first round, they have asked a question from calculus and some pure mathematics questions. The question from calculus was integral e power minus x square dx, which is root pi, which we prove in our first year, I guess. So my suggestion is to brush up the basic probability and basic mathematics. Also, you can look at math Olympiad problems, which will be a good advantage before your interview. And in the second round, they have asked some object-oriented programming questions, and they have asked about graphs implementation, but not exact standard algorithms. They have modified them a little and asked them. They just told to tell the theory behind the solution, not exactly to code in the interview, but in the preliminary test you have to actually code. And in the they asked about heaps and trees in the second round. In the third round, the questions were completely related to probability. They asked about 3 to 4, and in the fourth round, they have asked some logical puzzles, and again around 3 to 4. In the final round, it was HR interview. So basically, as I said earlier, just be confident on the concepts which you have already learned. If you don't know a specific topic, you just frankly tell them that you are currently unaware, instead of wrapping it around all the concepts of what you know. They have a good impression that we are already from IIT Kharagpur, and they and we have done some stuff. So just be confident and tell only the answers. Tell them clearly that you are currently unaware, and if you want me to learn, I am ready to learn in that way. And yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thank you, Shiva. The next question is for Amrit or Kshitij. I have a question for Microsoft. How are the level of questions in the first round specifically for this company, and how are the questions for interview rounds?
I guess I can take it for the software profile, and Amrit can answer for the machine learning profile.
Sure, yeah.
So for Microsoft, what happens is there are 3 questions, and the test is usually held not on HackerRank, but a platform specifically for Microsoft. Till last, but previous year it was CoCubes, but last year it was Metal.com. So the environment is a bit different from HackerRank. You may want to have a look on some screenshots of the platform beforehand. and there are three coding questions, generally of the level of code forces diff to B or C, and the questions for everyone are not the same. So there is a large question bank from which the questions are chosen for everyone randomly. So it may happen that you get all the three questions very easy, or a couple of questions hard and one easy, but more or less each of the question is of the level of at max diff to C. And this is for the coding round. And after the coding round, there used to be a group fly round on the night before the day one interviews. So in the group fly round, all the students were asked to sit in a room, and they were given two questions common to everybody, and you had to write code for it on paper and submit it to the invigilators there. So they manually go through the codes you wrote, and on the basis of that, you are either selected or rejected for the interview. In the interview, the questions are mainly of the level of problems which interview bit has. I was specifically asked a problem on DP and binary search in my first round, and a simple string implementation in the second round. Again, the questions are not that hard and can be easily done if you have done interview bit very well. So that's it for the software profile. There were 2 rounds for me and 1 HR round.
Cool. Thank you, Kshitij. Amrit, ML profile.
Yeah, am I audible, Manjunath?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the ML profile, you have a common competitive programming test, which Kshitij mentioned, that has 3 questions. So one thing, I mostly agree with Kshitij, but one point I would like to add is, do solve interview it fully to do Microsoft questions, because I got a question of manager algorithm, which is not that popular if you do competitive programming, but I had to blindly implement it. And so if I would not have done that, I would have missed the thing. So that's important. Please do that, because there are some non-trivial questions which are not logical. So that's one point. Then from the group fly round point, I want to add a tip, kind of, if you solve the questions early, contact the recruiter and show them your solution, because that way they will get to analyze you and maybe ask you more difficult questions like how to optimize space and some things. So that will create a good impression, because you get 90 people selected in group fly round around, and if everyone just submits the code on paper, then it is difficult for the recruiter, right? So you have to contact the recruiter. If you solve early, then it will be a plus. And now coming on to the interviews, I had 3 interviews. One was for competitive programming, the second was for machine learning, and the third one was HR. So competitive programming, I got a binary search problem. So that was very if that is a good question, but if you have done interview bit and code forces correctly, like I would recommend diff 3 DE or diff 2C. Those are the level of problems that generally appear. So you can be able to crack that. So, and during the interviews, please talk with the interviewer, share your ideas. If you are stuck somewhere, they will definitely help. And don't bluff anywhere. That's the point. And for the machine learning profile, what you have is they give you a general problem. So it is not that they will ask you, hey, what is some formulas of SVM or something. They will give you a general problem. So in my case, I was given a problem related to images and text, and they gave me a scenario of search engine implementation. Not like it is sounding very much, but there is no such correct answer. They just want to test your ideas and how can you give some solutions, then why you are giving some solutions. So I think if you have done ML, and that also depends upon the profile. If you have, I had computer vision, so I have got a computer vision question. So they basically see your CV, and based on that start the interview, getting your background. So it is more kind of a problem solving kind of skills, where you have to mention what tools you want, what models you need to implement, and based on that you have to justify why. So basically, having done Andrew Ng's course, and I would recommend a hands-on machine learning book with scikit-learn. The first 9 chapters of it covers very much, like it may be a good revision point of view if you have already done ML stuff. If you have not done DL, then don't worry, that they understand fully. And if you have done DL, then and it is in your CV, then they will definitely ask. But if it is not there, not to worry. They will mostly conduct the interviews based on your CV. Yeah, Manjunath, that's what. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Amrit. So the next question is for Shishodia. How do you prioritize the companies if you're shortlisted in multiple companies on a single day? And how long does each company's interview go on? And what should be the basis for the priority order? Shishodia? Prashant? Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, Manjunath, you're audible.
Oh, okay. Shishodia, he's unable to unmute apparently. Let me. Okay, till then, can anybody else who had multiple shortlists on day one, how did you decide upon the preference order? I think Bindal can take this. Bindal?
Yeah. So basically, what happens is like the Microsoft group fly round, like it ends like at midnight, just before day one, and its results like they come by 3 a.m. or 2:30 or 3 a.m. and then you have to give a preference call at 4 a.m. like in which order you will be appearing for the interviews. So in most cases, like it's normally like in two ways. Like the first way would be like you could place the companies in the order in like in how much like the company you like the best. For example, let's say one wants to get into Google or Uber or Microsoft above like they want to get into giants rather than going into a, let's say, a mid-sized company. You can do that way, and the other way that's like a more safer way is like you put those companies at the top in which your selection probability is high. Like many people do that, and I think that is safe to do also. But if you are like if you are confident about your abilities and like you're like I will crack that company, then you can place like your favorite company at the top. Otherwise, like it's suggestible that you put those companies at the top, like in which your selection is more likely. That's my take on it.
Manju, I would like to add one thing.
Yeah.
It's also
Sure, go on.
important to look what kind of skills the company wants. Like suppose I didn't have any system background or any other knowledge than CP, so I had to make sure that I don't put companies which required OOPS knowledge or systems knowledge higher on my preference list, because you don't get more than 2 or 3, maximum 4 interviews on day one. So if you put them on higher preference list and your selection of chances are low, then you would be in a problem.
Right. Thank you,
Okay,
Pratyush and
Manjunath.
Bindal. Yeah.
Manjunath, I would just add a specific thing that if you do not specifically want to go for Uber, then do not prioritize Uber over all other companies, because the interview round of Uber takes 3 hours, and by the time you are done with your interview, all other companies have already scrapped their interview process, and you will be left hanging behind. Like all other companies has ended their interviews, so you do not have any chance left to get your interview done for other companies. So if you are pretty sure that you are good enough with your CP skills that you can crack Uber, and you want to go for Uber specifically other than Google and all, so do not go for Uber. Like do not prioritize Uber over everything else, because that's gonna scrap everything else for you, because that has happened with some of seniors, and I guess Prakhar spent quite way too much time in Uber, so that he was only left with Nutanix and some other few companies. So there is that thing. Okay, just that.
Right. So I guess the point is clear here. So if there's a company that selects only like 2 or 3 people and is very tough to crack and also has longer interviews, then you risk missing out on other companies where you probably had a better chance if you prioritize the top company first. So yeah, you have to be a little bit clever on how you choose your preference order, or you could lose your chance to interview at another company.
Yeah, Manjunath, I had a
Cool.
point to add here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so suppose I was saying if your company, there are 12 candidates it needs to interview. So it would not do something like it will interview all the 12 candidates and select finally the best from them. What it does is it takes in one by one interviews and says if the candidate is in or out. So suppose assume that first 6 people who give the interview, they are pretty good enough. Then if you are even very good at position 9 or 10, they have already taken 6 people in. So that way your chances decreases. So if you are going to a company and you think that you have good amount of chance, So maybe you should apply for the company first and maybe get your interviews done early, because company have short amount of time, they come into the campus and hire people, and the decision is not that after 12 people they will give the final shortlisting. It is one by one. So you get the point, right? What I'm trying to mention.
Right, that is an important point. Yes. So the crux is basically just learn more about the company's interview style and how many people they usually take, and also the kind of work they do, so that you can decide on your preference order well. Yeah. So the next question is, can you describe the process of Google internship last year? And it's different this year from last year, but can you describe the process of Google internship? For this question, I think Shishodia can take, or Pratyush.
Actually, Bhutada has given Google interview for 2 rounds, so
Kshitij
I
or
guess
Bhutada?
Bhutada is
Anyone
better
can
suitable
take.
for this.
Kshitij or Bhutada?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Chaitanya, go ahead. Yeah.
Actually, in my time there was just 2 rounds with 3 questions. In first round they asked one question, which was quite tough. So I could not think in a moment. Like they give a Google Drive link in which they write the question, explain some things like, and we need to do it in 45 minutes. Like they set the timer. Also, hints are not much given in the uh, process. So yeah, the selection is quite tough, but only algo and data structure questions are asked.
How was the shortlisting done, and how many were shortlisted for the Google interviews?
I don't know how many were shortlisted. I think so 13 to 14 were shortlisted, and shortlisting was done mainly on uh, resume section, like C.G.P.A, like, and Kickstart ranks.
All right.
I think, and yeah, and previous big company internships like, yeah, Adobe or
Okay.
Samsung.
But this year, I guess the process has changed for Google, right? They have their own Google Online Challenge test, and maybe based on that they might shortlist.
Yeah, maybe different.
Yeah.
No, but interviews should be same, I think.
Yeah, that is there. Yeah. All right. Next question. How do you think the internship process will change due to the COVID pandemic, and uh, how uh, how do you think we can tackle this? Does anybody want to take this?
Yeah, so I will take this. Like many IITs have like started their internship processes, and companies are coming. As far as I have heard and from my other IIT friends, there is not much interruption for IITs. There are some companies which might not come, but as expected, it's not very huge for IITs. For smaller colleges, the problem is a little bigger. Most of, like, I talked to IIT Roorkee, my friend, he said that it's not a big problem. Most of the companies are coming.
All right. My take on this would be, I don't think there would be much difference in the interview process, since it will mainly be just an online telephonic interview, and you will be asked to still solve the question maybe on Google Docs or on their own online editor in front of them. So the interview process would not change much, but the shortlisting process might have quite a few changes from normal years, because previously you had to give all your tests in Nalanda, and now you give it from your home, and there might be chances of um I don't know, any random interruptions due to internet or power, or even cheating might be more apparent in this process, but we'll not go into that. Yeah, anyway. So the interview process should be similar. One more thing would be that maybe the pressure of CDC might get reduced, since it's from your own home, and you won't see people moving around in Nalanda. So in Nalanda, you'll see a lot of people around you who would have finished 3 rounds of the interview of the company you've been giving, and you've only finished one, and that sorts of adds to the pressure, that environment. So maybe all that might not be there, since you're at home and you're comfortable. But again, the overall CDC pressure will still be there at the end of the day when the results come. So yeah. Anybody else has any other take? We can move on to the next question if not.
Yeah, Manjunath, I just had this one take.
Yeah.
So the process mentioned by Prashant about choosing the priority list and like taking over and skipping other companies. I think
Right.
this year the situation is going to be a bit different because you'll be you aren't running after the companies, right? So they will be sending out links if you get shortlisted and all. So the way the process behind choosing the preference order should be like it's upon you, but it can be a bit relaxed. Like the time constraint about missing out companies for the sake of attending one, I think that isn't going to be there this season. But that being said, nobody knows what is going to happen this season. Like we were the first batch, our entire batch was the first one to have a virtual intern, a whole batch. So
Right.
the entire scenario has changed. Nobody knows what the companies would be looking for, how much will they take, or how much. Like it's not scaring and all, but the situation is quite different. The interview process will be different. The questions might be different. So yeah, whatever the thing might be, just don't freak out because all of your batches and will be going through the same process together. So just believe in yourself and just think about all your options with a very clear mind. Not like don't cramp yourself too much. That's all I have to say.
Right. Thank you, Koustav. Next question. Okay, yeah. Question to one who has done SDE intern. I am from agriculture department. I've done only one open source project in Android dev. I've started CP since this lockdown on interview bit. Can I hope to bag a software development internship, especially Amazon? So he is specific about Amazon. So can anybody?
Manjunath, I think these
take-
questions have been answered in the chat. You can move on to the question which are there in our WhatsApp groups. Those are more relevant, I guess.
Oh, all right, sure. Just 1 second.
Kshitij, you can mention about the online coding interviews in the meanwhile.
Okay, so I can. Yeah, Manjunath, you were saying something.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I appeared for Google's interview last year, and Google's process was online then too. So what happens in an online interview is you are shared a Google Doc or an editor of their choice or something like that, or you may be asked to share your screen with an editor, and a question is given to you. In my case, it was given. The question was pasted on Google Doc, and you have to walk the interviewer through your solution. So what the ideal way is to take the problem, try to come up with a brute force solution. Don't get into the exact solution even if you know directly, because that might seem like you have solved that question before and might decrease your chances, because it happens that sometimes the interviewer mentions that if you have solved a question previously, please inform beforehand. So what the best way is to start with a brute force solution and try to optimize it at various steps. And how to do this? You will be given a Google Docs or an editor. Start by explaining your solution in the form of a diagram, or take some sample cases and explain how your solution solves the problem. And finally, when you are asked to write a code, you have to write a proper code. It is not supposed to be a pseudo code. At least in Google, you were asked to write a proper working C++ code. They don't test it, but it should be like something that you can copy paste it to a compiler and run it. So you should be good at writing codes very well. And yeah, you have to explain your solution to the interviewer. You should be able to communicate your thoughts very well mostly because it is online, so you won't be seeing them face to face. So communicate your thoughts well and write good code. That is the main requirement for, I guess, most of the companies, if I'm not wrong.
Right, that is a very important point. Have conversations with your interviewer and discuss the solution with the interviewer. And the more you discuss, the more hints you might get on a tough problem. So if you keep explaining your thought process to the interviewer and keep jotting down all your thoughts, it will definitely make a better interview rather than just awkward silence and you thinking about the solution in your mind.
Yeah, Manjunath, I wanted to add a point. So since this year the interviews are online, so you won't be having pen and paper to do the diagrams and explaining all those things. So better practice a mock interview on Google Docs or something where you draw a graph, and like suppose the graph has a node and has a number 1 and that number changes from 1 to 2. So walking your interviewer through that, what would you do in pen and paper? Please try to do that on Google Docs. That is very important. And you may also see some pseudo interviews on YouTube, having William Lean. They have done some interviews with Google recruiters. So you'll get an idea of how to walk through online interviews. Yeah, that's
right.
I'd like to add a small point. Like writing good code is about like maintaining indentation and writing, keeping meaningful variable names and all. Just don't give variables names like X, Y, Z, and that really sort of gives a negative impression, I guess. Keep the variables name meaningful and keep good indentation while writing code.
Cool. Thank you, Koustav. The next question is there any dress code for interviews? And now, since it's especially online interviews, is there any specific dress code? I don't think we know that yet. Maybe CDC will tell you that. But in general, for CDC, formals are preferred when you're going to the interview. Yeah. If anybody else knows about this year's online interview ka dress code, then please jump in. All right.
Yeah, Manjunath, I think we have discussed very much about coding interviews. If anyone of Quant profile is still there in the panel and you want to add some other type of interviews, please go ahead.
Krishnam, Shiva, are you guys still there?
Yeah, I am there. I have given a brief overview. So it basically doesn't much matter with the coding or the finance. You should be good with the analytical and problem solving skills. Someone asked about CG requirements. So some companies have CG requirement of 8 like Quadeye, and for JP Morgan it was 7.5. So it for software profiles, the CG really doesn't matter, but gives a good impression to the recruiter. And also for the quant profile, the projects you have done earlier and the POR will just give a good impression, but not exactly. They won't create a huge difference in the to the recruiter. You should be confident and you should impress the recruiter. That's it. Yeah. Also, they have asked about the department for the quant profile. We have 3 interns recruited by JP Morgan this year. I am from electrical, and the other one is from mining, and the other one is from HSS department. So it doesn't really matter from which department you are by this. Yeah.
Hi. Hello, I'm audible.
Thank you, Shiva. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was at Shiva and interning at JP Morgan. So, like in general, the points I want to add to Shiva, like I didn't knew much of the coding, like just the basics of it, like what we learn in first year. So, in my case, my interview was completely different. So they didn't ask me any of the coding questions, like they just asked some basic questions of the arrays that too, like that's just a first year questions, PDS questions. and they were more inclined towards financial questions, and I did had something about ML on my project, so they went with that. But the main thing is like prop stats, like whether you know coding or finance, it doesn't matter, but the prop stats and like the puzzles is more important. Yeah. And the department, yeah. So I'm from mining department. Like the question was asked, like, is there any department specific? So yeah, I in my first day also I got like I got what rounded like selected for the interview for at least 3 to 4 companies, like just with the mining department. So it doesn't actually matter like what your department is. For some companies like Quadeye or something, like they do have, but in general it doesn't.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Raj. Yeah. I guess now we've gone through pretty much the selection process. Now maybe an interesting thing to do would be to explain what the panelists did in their interviews, so that the new aspirants can know what kind of work will be given to them if they join the company. Anybody wants to volunteer and start with their internship experience, the work that they did?
Manjunath, before beginning with the internship experience, like I will like to add one point.
Yeah.
Is that like everyone? I think everyone should have like mock interviews with their friends. Like now the process is going to be completely online, so it's even easier. Like you two can share a Google Doc, and one of you can basically pick up a problem from lead code medium, lead code hard, and ask a friend to code it on Google Docs while explaining a solution. And
Right.
in my
That is
opinion, like mock interviews help a lot before the actual interviews.
true. Yeah. Thanks for the suggestion, Prakhar. Yeah. Does anybody have anything else to suggest regarding the selection and preparation stuff? Okay, here's one fun question. This is for almost everybody in the panel. नहीं होता भाई CP, नहीं आता मैक्स हमारे का सम बताना, नहीं कर सकते डायनामिक प्रोग्रामिंग, नहीं मिलेगा इंटर्न क्योंकि ऑल दैट मैटर्स इज द अबव, सेलेंगे थोड़ा बहुत बड़ा जिंदगी बचा है. Anybody wants to take this?
I wish Shishodia could take it.
But yeah, on a serious note, yes. Most of the companies do test.
Manjunath, your voice is breaking.
Manjunath, yeah, your voice is breaking.
Since there are a lot of candidates and everybody has different experiences, different background, and good problem solving skills sort of all.
Manjunath, we are not able to hear you.
Hello,
Anybody else can get the answer?
Yeah.
Pratyush, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, so I would like thing I would say is it's not easy, but it's rewarding. We also faced a lot of problems at the start. I hardly know anyone who would say that I was the master from day one. We all had to put a lot of efforts. हमसे भी नहीं होता था, हमने कर लिया, तुझसे भी नहीं होता, तू भी कर ले.
Right.
Nice one.
All right. So, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, Manjunath.
Yeah. Shall we move on to the kind of work that is done in each company? Like, at least the kind of work that we did in each company? Or so that the new aspirants can have a better idea.
Yeah, you can start off by describing yours.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my work at Goldman Sachs was in the securities division. Uh, a security is mainly any financial commodity that can be traded. And I worked on a tool that uses a linear optimizer. Uh, it was more like a software work itself. So I had to add two features to this tool. One to visualize the stability of the solution. The concept behind is something that has to do with finance, which you can learn on the way. But the work that I did was mainly the software part, and I had to implement a small algorithm. It wasn't too hard, and it's not something that only some people can do. It was kind of a average work itself, but it was fun though, as in it wasn't extremely loaded, and it was kind of interesting. It wasn't very hard, but it was an interesting problem to solve. So yeah, this was my experience, and it was anybody with a good experience in open source and a little bit of data structures can pick up and do the work that I did at Goldman Sachs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Koustav can tell about his work at Nutanix.
So my work at Nutanix was mainly in the it's a company that focuses mainly on cloud solutions. So the work that I had was for the data protection team. So I was mainly asked to make a kind of a website that deals with the logs of this servers, the virtual machines that you have. So the skill that was required is to be good in like Python and reading up large code bases and understanding them. So and yeah, having a skill in so I did work on a bit of open source prior, so that really helped. And like yeah, having an idea of how Flask or Django works helped me. But like Manjunath said, it's a skill that can be picked up on the way. The Nutanix is actually a very fun company to working. I think Prakhar and Chaitanya can also chime in on this. But yeah, there is no additional pressure. You actually you are actually very chilled out from the day one, and like the day you join this thing, and you'll enjoy the kind of work that you do at Nutanix. I think that ends it. If anybody of Prakhar or Chaitanya wants to chime in to the
Uh,
work.
like I think Costa covered almost all the points. Like the work culture was very great. There was no sort of pressure. Yeah, there were deadlines. You need to be accurate with the deadlines, but the work culture was really cool. Even though we were virtual, but still, like there was a nice vibe working there.
Cool. Next,
Um,
Microsoft guys, there are a lot of
but
Microsoft guys here.
Kshitij or Amrit can tell.
Kshitij, you can tell for the software profile. I'll tell for the ML profile.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so my work was basically in the Teams division, the Teams application which you're using now. I was working on that, and it was more related to front end development. So I had to create an application specifically for Teams, and it was mostly related to front end development. I had learned a bit of JavaScript prior to my internship, so that helped a bit. But as Koustav, Manjunath, everyone said, you can pick these things on the way. I didn't know much of it, but I had a working knowledge, so that helped me pick up the concepts faster. And a couple of my friends who interned at Microsoft had projects related to products which Microsoft works on, like Azure or Bing or other products like OneDrive, SharePoint, etc. So you get to work on the products which a company works on. That's mainly the case with most companies, I suppose. And if you are like my work was mainly on front end development, and I learned a lot of front end skills, a lot of JavaScript libraries and all. And it was very fun. We had a lot of daily meetings with CVPs and leadership teams at Microsoft, even outside India. So we had a good chance to present our project, interact with people. So it was really nice working there. And yeah, Amrit can tell about his experience.
Yeah, so the culture part Kshitij covered really well. I agree completely with that. So I'll just mention specifics about machine learning profile. So my work was on graph embeddings that you can think of as graphs plus deep learning. So this is more kind of a research deep learning profile you look for. It is not data analytics, etc. So like Vadhani, Adobe Research, and Microsoft Deep Learning. These are good research profile deep learning things you can do. So most of our projects was on NLP and computer vision, and those were really good. We also have an opportunity to present our work at the end of the intern in a Microsoft conference, and you can publish papers too. So the work is really good. You'll really enjoy there. So I would suggest that after you complete your CDC and have 1 year time, you could do some preparation of basic NLP and computer vision, because they don't expect you to learn those things, but if you learn those things, that will be a plus point, and you can get your project much good. Like you can do advancements which they don't expect, and maybe good enough to get a paper or something. In short, the work is quite good, and it is a research profile kind of thing. Yeah, I'm done, Manjunath.
Cool. Thank you, Amrit and Kshitij. Anybody else wants to share their experience?
Yeah, I want to add for JP Morgan.
Yeah.
So actually, that there are a lot of teams in JP Morgan, around 12 to 14. So they some teams are specifically coding heavy implementation, and some teams are working on financial concepts, and some teams are purely mathematical, where they derive the models based on applied mathematics. So so the team allocation was done based on the CV we have attached in the interview remarks which were given. So in my team, I was allotted to the coding heavy team. So I was allotted to market risk team, which is actually like during the investment, it measures the risk which is related to market aspects. I was completely unaware during start of my internship, but gradually it was getting better. So my work was on data fetching and visualizing the data for some history, give a better understanding, and data sourcing speed up, which I have done to reduce the execution time using big data and Python. It just we don't do anything, but we can develop better.
Cool. Thank you, Shiva.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
My internship was at App Dynamics. It's a cloud application management industry company. It monitors the application of other companies. My work was mostly, I had no development experience. I didn't even know object-oriented programming stuff beforehand. But during the internship time, I was able to learn a lot because the mentors and seniors were quite helpful. Other thing I wanted to add was work was very interesting, like the technologies they use and stuff. The best thing what I liked was that you get the thrill of working in a startup industry along with having a umbrella of a big company like Cisco as its parent company. So there's a sense of security and thrill both. And again, the culture is quite good. It's quite fun, and the work is at a point where it's sustainable, but it's not that you get bored, but it's not very stressful as well. So overall, that was it.
Wow. Thank you, Pratyush.
If
Shishodia, are you on the call?
If Krishnan is there, he can talk about bit about Quadeye.
Right. Yeah. Krishnan, are you there?
I think some is not there.
Shishodia?
Prashant.
नहीं है शायद. Okay.
I think he's not there.
So I guess we'll conclude this, right? Or does anybody else have anything else to say? If any of the CDC aspirants have any questions, maybe you can ask us now. Any questions apart from the ones covered? Oh, Krishnam is there. Okay, yeah. Krishnam? आ गया क्या?
1 minute just. Sorry for wait, guys. He's coming.
In the meantime, somebody can chime in on something. Like Prakhar Bindal can maybe
sing a song.
Yeah. Or try to make fun of himself.
If any juniors have any questions, then maybe we can.
You can raise your hand.
Questions you can ask us.
Anybody? Just unmute yourself and go ahead, or put it on the chat.
Chinmay is there. Chinmay wants to say something.
He's into junior, by the way. So, Chinmay.
Hello. My CDC intern was with Gartner, but that apparently got cancelled because of COVID. So I had another intern, which is machine learning intern. I'm working as a machine learning intern for Siri at Apple. So I applied for this off-campus at EMNLP last year, which is a research conference for natural language processing, and got through then. I had a couple of interviews for that. One of them was NLP research. So in that, they asked me questions relating to recent research in NLP, and I had a paper, so they asked a lot about my paper. And the second interview was a coding one, but the problem was very relevant to natural language processing. But I think that was true. This kind of coding was true for only the US office. In the India office, they ask a lot of data structures that you'd find in the usual CDC process itself. So that was it. So you can also apply offline. There are a lot of opportunities that are opened right now as well. You'll find GitHub repositories listing down all of the internship opportunities. You can also start through there if you want. There are a bunch of good opportunities there.
Thank you, Chinmay. Is Krishnam back?
Yeah, I think he's back.
Then go ahead, Krishnam.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so regarding what I did in Quadeye, actually this year the internships were virtual, as you all might be knowing. So due to that fact, Quadeye had a lot of issues with giving out its access. Most finance companies have this issue. What our role was, basically in office, our role would have been to create strategies end to end. But due to this, our role in the internships was just to create strategies without actually integrating it into the main QE ecosystem. So I spent most of my time running my strategies on their system, which basically involved doing a lot of C++ coding, writing predictor files, then including them in the build, and then subsequently testing them. So it basically is you basically use some terminology like Sharpe ratio and all to report how much profitable a strategy is over a fixed capital. Like I traded around 100 CRs in my intern duration, and I earned around like 15% or so of return. So that is there, and the intern overall was very, very, very hectic. I'd say, as compared to some of my SDE friends who I know, that the intern was pretty good and chilled out, relaxed, I would rather say. I don't know why it turned that way, but later I got to know from my mentor that they're actually pushing asking people because they wanted to not roll out that many PPOs, so perhaps they were just testing us. So that was one, I guess, con of working. The pros were that the mentors were really great. They really helped us, and we really got to upgrade ourselves in a lot of ways. So it is a good place to work, I'd say. But they can be really demanding in terms of the hours that you do. So like, bear that in mind, I'd say.
Great. Thank you, Krishna.
Thanks.
So I guess we'll call this session to an end now. All the best to all the CDC aspirants, and do well in all the tests and interviews, and make sure you choose the right company and make the right decisions.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and we will be posting the recording as well, so you guys can check it out if you missed some part or you lost the connection or something like that.
Also, if you have any other doubts, you can ping any of us anytime. We will be available.
Yeah.
I got a message from one of the attendees of the meeting. So the question is, people are sometimes not confident of their speaking skills. So how should they go about it? So my pick on it would be try out as many mock sessions as you can. And it's not that the interviewer is testing your English speaking skills. They want to know how well you can communicate your thoughts. So if you're able to tell what you exactly mean, that should be sufficient. So you don't need to practice speaking English now. So just practice a couple of rounds with your friends, and that should help. And there is no need to panic about it.
Yeah, just being confident of the whole process because all your friends are also going through them. So, guys, you aren't special, neither are they. But obviously, you are special. But yeah, but yeah, don't need to make this a big fuss or like it's a
Also,
normal.
don't get sad if you get rejected or anything. Like, rejections are a part of the whole process. Just think that there is another company waiting for you who wants to take you. If you get sad, then it may affect your chances for the next companies.
Yeah, this is also So
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that don't worry too much about the HR rounds. Where engineering students, they don't really care about the speaking skills that much. So it's good if you have them. It is even decent if you don't have it. So don't worry about that. That's a no factor for you.
Yeah.
I
Any
guess
more questions?
I guess that should be it. We should thank you guys for joining this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
Hope this was
everyone.
helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
All the best. Yeah.
All the best.
I think we'll draw this session to a close.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, brother.